Hello, this is Brian Raya with the final for the animation, 3D animation rigging class. So the very first thing I wanted to cover are the joints and their placement. I placed the hip joints around this position to get all four of these edge loops for a better bend when possible. The bottom of the spine also starts here with these three these three upper edge loops, again for as much bend as possible. I'll move down into the knee, which has a slight bend, as you can see. I placed it here to try and get these three edge loops for a better bend. I didn't want to put it just between these two. I kind of wanted to even it out between these three, if possible. Right here I have my ankle, which is on this spot right here. I have my ball right here between these three. My toe is here and my heel is here. I'll go into the reverse foot in just a bit. But I'll start with the spine. The spine has a gentle curve that goes up and along the edge loops and ends right here at what is Moom's chest. Right here we can see that all of them start here. The one thing I do wish I would have changed is to move this slightly lower, just to give more of an angle between the clavicle, which is also in here, and the shoulders. But other than that, I don't seem to have a problem with the spine or even the hands, but aesthetically it probably would have looked better than having everything clumped right there. I have my shoulder joint right here, same on the other side. My elbow has a bit of a bend right there, and we have our point at the wrist right here on this edge loop. We have points on the knuckles since there are two edge loops around that area. There's 3 edge loops around this first bend, and a couple more around the next bend, and that's where I put my next joint. And then the termination joint right there. Moving on into the neck starts where the spine ends, and the neck joint is basically this one right here. The head joint is the one that is located right here where the head begins, and there's the head end joint. Going into the foot, we can see these two joints form the bank joints. We have that connected to our heel joint, and our heel joint is connected to the smaller joint, which is the toe reverse. This other smaller joint right here is the ball reverse, and this other joint right here is the heel reverse. So the very next thing that I will go into is the SuperMover. We'll start with scaling. So well, this might be easier without showing the joints. So right now we just have the controls visible. Uniform scaling along all the objects, so everything gets scaled, including the controls, the skin, the pupils, etc. We'll go back to 1. Rotational values right here. You can see Moom rotating. And the other thing would be translation, Moom moving around. As you can see, the values are increasing and decreasing. The SuperMover is the only place where scaling can occur, mainly because I don't want the whoever the user is to do weird scaling issues on Moom. So I try to lock those out whenever possible. I'll start with the foot control next. Both of them are the same, so I'll just do one of them. We have our translations right here. We have our rotations right there. The knee control is a child of the foot control, so that way when the foot moves, the user doesn't have to move the knee. But it might require a little bit of tweaking since the parenting is a bit weird. But I thought it was a simpler system for the user specifically. Right here I have the ball raise command, so I can raise on the ball. The next thing would be a heel raise, so I lift up on the heel. I have a heel pivot right here. I can zero those out. Next I'll have my bank, so my bank banks on this specific joint, so you can see it going bottom and top. And then my toe, I have a toe raise and a toe pivot. Again, the other side of the other foot is identical. Right here I have my knee control, which allows this to move in and out. Not much to the knee control other than just its translation. I did provide rotation just as a visual thing, but rotation doesn't really have any effect on the joint specifically. Our root control right here. We have our movement. We also have our rotational values, as you can see. While on the subject of the root control and the SuperMover, as you noticed, the upper body is parented to the root control for right now. If I wish to switch it in this middle body, I can switch to the SuperMover. And when I switch to the SuperMover, as you can see, I have a weird snake-like action for different follow-through. I'll change that out, back to the root, and zero out all those controls. As you notice, I have rotational values, and this is also where the switch is. I have movement left and right. The upper body is the same. I have rotations. I have left and right. All my translates are there. That's just briefly going in through the spine. The spine currently is just set up as a forward kinematic. I don't really like the IK spline, so I stuck with this, but all the features of the IK spline are there. There is some nice bending going on, as you saw, and I do still have that snake-like action when I do my IK, when I do my parent switch for the SuperMover and the root. So I didn't think it was entirely necessary, and as I mentioned, I don't really like the spline IK. Apart from the parent switches, each one of the arms has their, each one of the shoulders has their IK-FK switches on here. So if one arm wanted to be FK, so this one showing all the forward kinematic circles, or IK being just the controller right here and the elbow control, I am able to do that by switching the IK-FK right here in the shoulders, since the shoulders are always available. And again, I can just switch that on and off from FK to IK. The shoulder mainly just is another ability to move up and down. Right here you can see my shoulder moving up and down. My shoulder can also move in, back, and in any other way that the user might want. Briefly showing forward kinematics. It's just the rotational values on here for the user to rotate wherever they want. Right here you can see the wrist turning. Also going into the fingers. The fingers have a full curl call. They also have a lower, which rotates from right here, basically the knuckle of the finger. Apart from that, they have the middle, which is this edge loop area right here that I'm illustrating. Right there you can see the bend right there, and the tip covers this very upper part, as you can see. I also implemented a spread for each of the fingers so that they can move left and right. And all the fingers work basically identically. The IK, as I mentioned, or as I showed before, right here you can see me moving and setting the FK and moving it around. Just like the foot, I had the elbow control be the child of the wrist, so that way it doesn't necessarily always have to be moved by the user. But to get better control, they would just go in, place it where they wanted it. Setting everything back to 0. I've demonstrated the fingers, so I think I should just move on to the neck. The neck control basically covers just a rotation. You can swoop in and out, back, left and right. The head also is just rotation-wise. You can see Moom moving his head up and down. We can get a nice little twist. We can get an up and down, left and right. We can twist it in whatever way we seem fit. For the eyes, we have the main eye control being this big one. And you can see Moom's eyes. The one weird thing about the model is that since the eyes are in a weird spot inside the mesh, sometimes they move too far out to the left and right. So I do think it's up to the user to properly make sure that his eyes don't escape through the side of his face. I haven't really figured out a way to just lock it so that way one of the eyes locks at this position and the other eye locks at that position, so that way they don't, escape his view. But apart from that, there is that movement, there is rotation to lock onto a specific target. Let's say it's over here. But apart from that, that should cover all the eyes. You have singular control of the eye, so you can have Moom focus in like that and then just walk around with his eyes in that position if you so choose. I should reset my eye controls. I try to lock out as much as possible, so those only have translates, while the main eye control has rotate. The next thing to cover will be the oh, I still have the head. I didn't zero it out. So the head has its 5 expressions. So to make it easier, as you can see right here, we have our smile controls. So we have a left side smile and we have a right side smile. We also have our angry control. I also moved his teeth a little bit to make it look like he has his teeth coming out. We have a surprised look. We also have a sad look. All of these controls, by the way, max out at 1 to make it easier to calculate how much happiness or sadness you want. So half smile is 0.5, etc. Here we have a sick Moom. And that should be all of our facial controls using blend shapes. If I could, I probably would have wanted separate controls for everything, like just a control for the eyebrow, a control for the shape of the eyes, and for the mouth and face. But for the 5 expressions and the blend shapes, I think that covers a wide variety of expressions. I think that covers everything. Once again, I'll just give a brief look at what Moom looks like with all his joints on and everything. Everything should be referenced and zeroed out by the time I send the file, so that way you are able to only mess with the, right now the way it is, only mess with the controls for Moom. and that should be it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and goodbye.